Well, it's all going to plan. Not my plan, of course, and I suspect not your plan either, unless you happen to be a billionaire. If that's the case, I want to take you to lunch and talk about tithing. My plan would be that everyone could be their authentic, beautiful selves, the self created in the image of the divine, and live their most authentic life in peace, loving whom they love without repercussion. Shanakatsky, the professor, sexuality educator, and activist, tells us, when you show up as your authentic self, whatever that may be, you allow others to do the same, creating the world we all deserve. Their plan was acknowledged well before the election. 47 dropped hints in his stream of unconsciousness speeches. Project 2025, the 900-plus page policy book detailing how a second Trump administration would overhaul the federal government, was posted online well before the election. Paul Dans, a lawyer and chief architect of Project 2025, is thrilled that the second Trump administration appears to be following the controversial blueprint. It's actually beyond my wildest dreams, he told Politico. Their plan was to dismantle departments, expand his executive authority, put an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, and purge the federal workforce and replace them with political appointees. Thousands are losing their jobs. Even those here legally are being deported without due process. And federal funds are being funneled from those who pay taxes and need assistance to the ultra-wealthy. These billionaires dance with chainsaws, ignore the outrage, and politicians attempt to justify their actions. As blatant as their intentions were, they couldn't run solely on making the wealthy wealthier. They had to have some diversions for those who are not billionaires to latch onto. That way, once they regained power, they would have something to point to as they absconded with the country's wealth and aligned themselves with other dictators. As is so often the case, they settled upon the culture wars as a distraction. In a December sermon, I looked ahead to what 2025 might bring us. To no one's surprise, I referenced a movie musical and shared a quote by the wizard who confided in Elphaba. When I first got here, there was a discord and discontent. And where I come from, everyone knows that the best way to bring folks together is to give them a good enemy. Something similar happens in another movie musical, and I share this admittedly imperfect analogy. In Beauty and the Beast, a selfish but handsome prince is turned into a beast due to his cruel behavior. And in yet another instance of the working class paying for the sins of the wealthy, his servants are turned into household objects, albeit singing and dancing ones. The village's beautiful bookworm, Belle, falls in love with the beast's library, several songs prior to falling in love with him. Gaston, the town bully, jealous of Belle's literacy and the beast, riles up the townsfolk in order to destroy his competition. Gaston, not letting facts stand in the way of a good demonization, tells them, "The beast will make off with your children. He'll come after them in the night. We're not safe until his head is mounted on my wall. I say we kill the beast." Grabbing flaming torches and pitchforks, the town people are quickly on board. We don't like what we don't understand, and in fact, it scares us. And this monster is mysterious, at least. Let's kill the beast. As I said, this is an imperfect analogy, except for the fact that those looking for love and to simply live their lives are being demonized by others who are being cruel and jealous. But I share this synopsis to highlight the lyric, "We don't like what we don't understand, and in fact, it scares us." A lack of understanding, coupled with fright, are a perfect place to create a really good enemy and manipulate the masses. There's been quite a lot of a lack of understanding being reported in the news. An English teacher got an angry email from a parent saying they could not believe they were taking the students on a field trip where they would learn about being trans. Well, of course, the students were being taken to Walden Pond to learn about the transcendentalist, Henry David Thoreau. In his speech to Congress, 47 declared DOGE had uncovered the Biden administration's waste of $8 million for making mice transgender. In reality, they are transgenic mice, and they play an important and pivotal role in research. His minions maintain it was just a slip of the tongue, but I'm not buying that. I'd trust gas station sushi before I'd trust their analysis. Trans is, of course, a prefix, which variously means across, beyond, through, or changing thoroughly. My father worked for TWA, Trans World Airlines, for over 30 years and never once fielded a complaint about transgender people as either passengers or employees of the airline. So defying science, logic, and decades of research and forsaking kindness, in January, 47 signed an executive order intended to recognize only the binary. It asserts a new legal definition of sex that strips federal recognition of the gender identity of some 1.6 million trans and non-binary Americans. The order requires federal departments to recognize gender as an immutable male-female binary determined by biological sex assigned at conception that cannot be changed. But in reality, all embryos are filled with both male Y and female X chromosomes at conception. Gender doesn't reveal itself until at least 18 weeks later. And even then, it's sometimes hard to tell whether it's a girl or a boy, or a baby with the sexual characteristics of both. But his alleged heart wasn't even into this ignorance and cruelty. He admitted on camera that the only reason he stoked transgender issues was the election. He is quoted as saying, "I said don't bring up that subject because there's no election right now. But about a week before the election, bring it up." But the townspeople are not so quick to lay down their flaming torches and pitchforks. It was asserted for so long this hatred of the other was the reason for the election, they now wanted it acted upon. So he signed the executive order. We don't like what we don't understand, and in fact, it scares us. So, let me provide a little understanding. In the world of the binary, which is against all reason and religion being codified into law, things are pretty simple, black and white. But as thoughtful people know, life is lived in shades of gray. The binary tells us boys are boys and feel like boys inside and look like boys on the outside and have crushes on girls. Snips, snails, and puppy dog tails. Similarly, girls are girls, feel like girls on the inside, look like girls on the outside, and have crushes on boys. Sugar and spice and everything nice. Except this flies in the face of both casual observation and science. Boys aren't always clearly boys, and girls aren't always clearly girls. The ordering of chromosomes are many and beyond my comprehension. I was, after all, an art major, not a genealogy major. But let me quote the British NHS website, since such information is being scrubbed from US governmental websites. Some people have a chromosome pattern other than the usual X, Y, or XX. They may have one X chromosome, XO, or they may have an extra chromosome, XXY. Their internal and external sex organs can be either male or female, but they may not go through a physical a full physical development at puberty. For example, a child with female sex organs may not start having periods. Now next, those born as boys don't always feel like boys inside, nor do those born as girls always feel like girls. Gender identity is a person's innermost concept of themselves as male, female, a blend of both, or neither. It's how individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. A person's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. You may have heard the term gender dysphoria, which is the clinically significant distress caused when a person's assigned birth gender is not the same as the one with which they identify. Those with gender dysphoria may, with the proper support, be able to transition so that their internal knowledge of gender more closely aligns with their outward appearance. Now, while I didn't major in genealogy, I did go back and get my Master of Divinity degree. And while these chromosome patterns I described make a compelling case, I would suggest that the theological and cultural arguments make an even better one. In the first chapter of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, it reads, "Then God said, 'Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness.'" Us? Our? This suggests to me that God's pronouns are they, them, and theirs. Traditional Judaism holds that God is completely non-corporeal and thus neither male nor female. Well, then the editors got to the next verse. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Guess which pronouns the binary enthusiasts latch on? And here's why. Because if God is male, male is God. So, both male and female were created in the image of God. I think this certainly suggests that God is gender fluid at the very least. How could anyone suggest that members of the LGBTQ+ community are not made in the image of God? And in the words of the song, how could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? In Chinese philosophy, yin and yang describe an opposite but interconnected self-perpetuating cycle. Yin is retractive, passive and contractive in nature, while yang is repelling, active and expansive. The dichotomy is seen throughout nature, in patterns of change and difference. Seasonal cycles, the evolution of the landscape, and yes, gender. Yin is female and yang is male, and fit together as two parts of a whole. But here's something I noticed. You can probably picture in your head the two black and white tadpole shapes curved around one another, but you may not remember that there are dots in each side representing the other side. As trans man and artist Mars Wright said, "My femininity makes me a better man." Each human carrying within themselves both male and female components is an inherent view in ancient Hinduism. These are considered forces rather than genders, and it is believed that the harmony between the two is what makes a true person. One of the forms of the Hindu god Shiva is Ardhanarishvara, which is the Hindu deity Shiva combined with his consort Parvati. Ardhanarishvara is depicted as half male and half female, equally split down the middle. There's a group whose identity originated in ancient Hinduism. The Hijras on the India subcontinent are officially recognized as third gender, considered neither completely male nor female. Most are female-identifying people assigned male at birth. In other parts of the world, throughout history, it has not been unusual for societies to acknowledge and even honor people who fulfill a gender role situated in the middle of the continuum between masculine and feminine. The Mehu are people who embody both the male and female spirit in Native Hawaiian and Tahitian cultures. They have traditional spiritual and social roles within the culture. In Ojibwe, a North American indigenous language, there were historically ikwikazo, men who choose to function as women, and inikazo, women who function as men. Contemporary indigenous people who fulfill these traditional third gender roles in their communities may be a part of the modern two-spirit community. Further south, in the Mexican state of Oaxaca, and in the Zapotec culture, a mushe is a person assigned male at birth and who adopts the feminine gender role, including dress, behavior, and social standing. Considered a third gender, their identity is also a preservation of Zapotec culture and customs. Besides these traditional and historic third genders, many cultures are now recognizing various non-binary gender identities. Non-binary and genderqueer are umbrella terms for gender identities outside the male-female gender binary. So I hope I've made clear that to insist that there's always been only two genders that are obvious and unchanging at birth defies science, logic, culture, and religion. Representative Sarah McBride, the first openly transgender member of the United States Congress, wrote, "Homophobia, transphobia, and sexism, they're all rooted in the same prejudice. The belief that one perception at birth, the sex we're assigned, should dictate who we are, who we love, how we act, and what we do." I've described this genetically and scientifically. I've described this culturally and theologically. And now I'd like to return to my plan that I mentioned earlier and describe it personally. I've done a variety of things in my life. I've been an artist, a waiter, an actor, a set designer, a writer and public speaker, and a minister and a preacher. Mostly creative pursuits. There's one thing I've learned about creating things and using your gifts in the world. Until you know who you are and are comfortable with who you are and your place in the world, you cannot be your authentic self, which means you're withholding your true self and all the wonderful things that make you, you. And until then, you can't be your best at whatever it is you're doing. I would have been a terrible minister right out of college. I had so much to learn about the world and learn and accept about myself. I look back and see a person who wasn't a great actor because I couldn't acknowledge who I really was. So how can I bring those unique aspects of myself to any character I was playing? In the best stories and speeches and sermons I have heard, the Creator is able to describe a universal truth distilled through their own personal experience. It'd be a cop-out to say, these ideas have been presented countless times before. What can I possibly add? The answer, of course, is you can add you. Sondheim told us in his musical Sunday in the Park with George, anything you do, let it come from you. Then it will be new. Give us more to see. If anyone, including yourself, is preventing you from being your true, authentic self, they are depriving you of enjoying life as your amazing self. They are depriving the world of the amazing gifts you and only you can share. Don't let them do it. No one in the world can tell you who you are better than you can. Whoever you know yourself to be, you are not only right, you are unique, and you are loved by this minister, this congregation, and whichever divine creator you envision. And please don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Amen.